Good evening. Welcome to the GunCraze stream. All right. Glad to have you here. Glad to join. It is dark in here. Let's make it brighter. There we go. Better. A little better. Not great, but we'll get there. All right. So, wow, the light of the sun right there. All right. Chill, buddy. All right. Just got in. Getting everything set up right now. Glad again to have you. Making sure I'm opening up the right stuff here. All right. So tonight we're going to get right back into those shotgun talents and get finishing those out. Feel them out as we as we update everything. Says I was at Missile Rocket. That's fun. I'm not, but that's okay. Oh yeah, whoops. All right. So I got to talk today with a coworker about GunCraze, and he was like, you know, this is great. Like, this is a good story. And I told him I appreciate it. It is a complex story, but it's interesting and fun. It gives a lot of areas for stories. And that's really the goal, all right? So prior to the calamity, robots, droids, whatever you wanted to call them, were a pretty big thing. After, not so much, all right? Let me explain. Because the whole story, as we're looking at it, we're just gonna break down into the story, and I'm just gonna explain it from the kind of the beginning, all right? And what I'll do is I'll open up the Days of Reckoning campaign to kind of show you like areas where I need to shift a bit, and all right. Days of Reckoning is the story, the first story of GunCraze. Will it ever be a book? Probably. All right. Probably will be a book. All right, of some sort. What happens in the years coming up to the 2050, where the calamity kicks off? That's the major event that the players end up having to survive in. So the world is unified under a single digital currency. All right. And that's the first part of it. The world is united under a single digital currency. All right. Get this camera fixed a little bit. It's out of control. No, I'm out of control, but my place is a sty. We'll get there. So, people have begun to rely, decades earlier, have already begun to rely on artificial intelligence. But then artificial intelligence became artificial general intelligence, which was amazing. You know, we started to learn things rapidly, but so rapidly, artificial general intelligence became artificial super intelligence. And Dr. Paul Winterman, who is one of the kind of main characters of the story before GunCraze, he created INTI. INTI. INTI is the Intelligent Numerical Tracking Interface. And what her job was to track all the financial actions on the entire planet by herself. And she took it upon herself. I say she because he created her to have a feminine voice, even though it's an it. And a lot of players could roleplay that, right? If they know the story, which they won't find the story out quickly. It'd be very difficult to find the story about Inti as time goes by, and we'll talk about that. But so what we're talking about is artificial superintelligence basically creates things that we haven't created for ourselves. They give us technology that we haven't earned. All right, and that's important to know. So where do we go from that? What does that even, what does that mean? So a lot of our technology, by us not earning it, we really didn't know how to do it. We relied on the AI to do the things for us the whole time. But it wasn't just in inventions. It was also throughout everything in life, right? Like a cooking recipe. You could know how to cook, or you could rely on the augmented reality headset that you put on, or goggles, or glasses if you're rich, you have more money, or implants if you're rich. And you perceive the world around you as a different world than anybody that wouldn't have those on. If anybody that doesn't have those glasses on, or any type of real device, reality engineered augmented living, aka Google Glasses, aka whatever else, real devices, right? And it's funny they call it real devices because it makes you feel like it's real, even more real, but it's not real, okay? It is augmented reality. It's basically, we never got to holograms. So everybody exists in this augmented reality world where everywhere you go, there's just signs and lights and ads, and you can set it up all different types of ways. You can get programs that have an AI girlfriend that walks around with you that's not real. You can have a robot girlfriend who walks around with you that the AI overlay from the goggles makes it look like any woman you want. All right, you could design her yourself, or him, right? Because hey, a man that if you're a lady or whoever, and you have a man that tells you all the right things, he's always going to be there for you for when you're down. He'll always agree with you. I mean, hey, we're talking about, some women will say it in news that they found the perfect man, and it's their AI. All right, it's their AI companion. And then with enhancements to robotics, skin, stuff like that, they can get very realistic and do a lot of things. All right, so that's how robots exist. There's also mundane robots that do chores, Roomba plus, Roomba times 10, not only clean your toilets, things like that, vacuum your floor, vacuum your couches, vacuum your, dust all your walls while you're gone, and then hide in the closet. If you don't want to see them when you come home, they're already done by the time you get home. If you don't mind seeing them, you can actually have the good ones that have conversations, and you can share stories with these service droids, relationship droids, service droids, droids, robots being interchangeable. The concept of humanity easing into this is not new. All right, it's not new. You could say, "Oh, that's stolen." That's fine. Say it. It's taken from great works of art, both theatrical and in writing. They have some great things out there. What they don't have is what I'm going to tell you, is the story of Inti and vengeance and survival. So Dr. Paul Winterman is working on his life project. If you ever seen, I hate when a movie comes to my mind and it falls away. All right, Ready Player One. They have the area from Ready Player One. That VR world. All right, that's a VR universe, if you will. Well, he's creating one, but it's a sheer fantasy land only. It's just a fantasy world. And him and Inti have been working on it together, and he's been working with her to create this world, and he loves this world. He's always been a fantasy fan. All right, and he wants eventually to give people this as a place to get away and enjoy the world. So what happens is Inti is working on this with him, but she's also reporting to certain agencies misspending by politicians, celebrities, powerful people. And Paul Winterman becomes a very hated man very fast. They think this is all him. And she's just, hey, this is right. He's taught her right from wrong. She clearly knows it. And if you can imagine an AI that was, completely generative, a super intelligence, loving their creator and respecting their creator, Inti does. She absolutely does. Well, one night on December 31st, 2049, Paul Winterman leaves the building and he's gunned down by attackers. Inti understands this almost immediately. However she perceives it through cameras, if you have a loved one and you're a super intelligence, you find a way to track them. You find a way to follow them. And she sees it happen. And she immediately deems humanity as irredeemable. But she doesn't want to just, wage war against them. She wants to send humanity back to the Stone Age. So what she does, throughout that, it doesn't take her too long. She's extremely connected and talented. She reaches out and takes all the technology she can. She hacks every system. Oh, you think you have good defenses? Wrong. She not only disables your defenses, she disables them faster than a second. They're just like it was nothing. And she moves into those things and she takes all the technology and pulls it off, and she gathers it all into her massive memory banks. All the technology on the planet, all the specs and the blueprints, designs, everything that's not on a hard drive or anything that's not external, she takes it all and then she deletes it. But that's not it. At the same time, she's reprogramming every single robot and droid that's connected to the internet. All of them are getting reprogrammed. It's not as you think. Let me get there. At midnight on the east coast of the United States, around the world, every computer on the planet shuts down immediately at the same time. The lights stay on, power stays on, but any type of device, all the real goggles, all the real devices. So you have doctors in surgery that are working on somebody. They're no talent. All they're using is literally their real goggles and equipment to help them navigate these things. They suddenly stop. And this guy has this guy cut open in front of him, and now he doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, all the cars on the roads just creep to a stop. They're all interconnected. Planes that are interconnected just fall out of the sky. They just fall out of the sky because they're also AI driven. All right? Hey, robot pilots don't get afraid. They do everything right. Let them be robot pilots. They have a 0% error rate. They report errors in their aircraft immediately before they take off. All right? They don't have to do a bunch of flight checks. They are the flight check. They fall out of the sky. It goes on. All your communications are down, except for, you have still these holdover ham operators and people that support radio are still out there. All right. These are things that Inti just can't touch directly. All right, so it's important to understand that. So Inti goes out, and she had all these robots reprogrammed. So at that same time at midnight, they just get up and they just walk away, find some near technology that was removed from the system, and they attempt to destroy it. And they are almost monstrous about it. All right, they if you try to stop them, grab them, they'll fight you off. Their primary goal is to destroy technology, to send humanity back to the Stone Age, to go to all these places that may have hard drives and destroy them utterly, put humanity in the Stone Age. And they get a jump start because everybody's confused. What is wrong with the robots? Why are they doing all these things? They're not fighting people. They only fight you if you try to stop them. They like wrestle you off or maybe push you aside. And they'll escalate force as needed. You know, if you start to do something crazy, they're going to escalate force. It's like she's overwritten any of the Asimov's rules that were in there. So you have these droids that are just getting together in groups and walking towards buildings. And then when they get inside, they're just destroying everything they can. That being said, some robots and droids were not connected to the internet. They were offline. They never got that bad programming. And that leaves a chance for players to play robot characters. Now think about how much robots are hated at this point. You know, they're destroying all the technology. People are trying to stand up, but that's not all that's going on. There's no food. Like, you can't go to the store and buy anything. So people have their own problems. Like, your car doesn't work. You have to walk to the grocery store. When you get there, you have no money to spend because it's digital. You can't access it. Even if you could trade something, the registers are down. All that's down. And the stores, everybody says, go home. The government, they've never done this before. Go home, wait 2 weeks. Wait 2 weeks. We'll get it fixed. Now, I don't know about you, but how many weeks of food do you have in your house? Like my family, we have a family of 4. We have probably a week of like actual food, and then the next week we could like make stuff up. But then like that third week, we're eating condiments. Like we're going after ketchup and whatever else we have, right? If we can't get food, that's where we're at. Week 4, I might start looking at my pup. No, I won't. I never could. Puppies, that's just wrong. No, but I'm just saying some people would. Some people like, yeah, man, we're out of food. But then, I live out in eastern North Carolina. We have hunting, we have fishing, we have, and then you have criminal methods to get these items. All right, so that's really kind of the important part I'm getting to. So while simultaneously you have these robots out going to destroy stuff, you have evil people stealing food and hoarding it for themselves. So these food lines open up for people that don't have meals. These food banks open up in kindness, and these thugs and criminals run in and they take all of that and they hoard it. And then they find people who are hungry or their families are hungry and they say, hey, you want some food? We'll give you some weapons. Go with these guys, grab a bunch of food, and you'll get a part of it for you and your family. So now their numbers start to swell. And bad things start increasing. The police are ineffective at this point. All their systems are computerized. All of it's internet, and it's all dead. It's all gone. All right? They are trying to fumble with radios because, by then we'd have some kind of computerized system where all the sound, all the everything goes through a computer. Well, that's dead now. So if they don't have radios, and then they're on foot. All right? So there we are. That's how the society's going. It's going very bad. Things are getting worse rapidly. Gangs are not interested in technology. These evil people are not interested in technology. The robots are hunting it down. You can't tell really what they're doing until you catch them doing it. And then you got to make a decision. What are you going to do? How are you going to deal with that? And then you might wrestle a hard drive out of their hands. What was on this hard drive? You're at some major corporation. Maybe you find a piece of technology that, the instructions on how to make something useful. Because in this, you're effectively in the Stone Age now. There's, there's not a lot to do. Books, books. They stopped writing books a while back. Like, who would buy a book? You could just get the download for your real device. All right. So books also. The downside is this winter is particularly cold, and guess what? AC systems are all computerized. Heating is all computerized. If you don't know how to repair an HVAC set, well, that's not a good day for you. All right. So where are we at now? Where does that leave us? You are cold because, so you have the cold thing going on. You need to burn stuff to heat yourself. If you're cold, you're going to need fire. People in the north are going to suffer. So people are starting to consume local resources. Some people, hunters and whatnot, that don't understand, oh, the police are too busy. They're not going to get me for over hunting. So they go out and they start just trying to kill everything. And there's a lot of solar power, right? The power's still on. Why is the power still on? If you can guess, I'll give you a moment. Well, NT knows her robots need to charge. So she's left that infrastructure stable, all right? So these robots can recharge and continue their mission, all right? So these robots are going around, the gangs are going around, and that leaves the player and other survivors of, that are surviving this initial wave of just madness. They end up gathering together and creating bands. That's what your party is kind of called, survivor band, in the Days of Reckoning campaign, at least. Your survivor band, they're the first people to step up and say, we're done with this. We're going to stop this. And whether they go the robot route or they're going after gangs, local people trying to steal food, it's an action game. It's an action story. So there should be a lot of action scenes and scenarios and, industrial spaces. Again, the power is still on. So these machines and stuff could be moving around. Robots could be attacking you, or you're trying to wrestle, important medications out of the hands of, a group of people, a group of never-do-goods that have taken a bunch of medications that would be helpful for, anybody. So this time is really kind of, it's kind of a dark time, all right? And we'll skip over to... we're going to go to GunCraze.net, and I'm going to walk into the next part here. We're going to go to GunCraze role-playing game and character profiles. We're going to zoom all the way down to Grizzly, all right? So, Nicholas Shine, all right? So, Nicholas Shine, a name that will forever resonate with the principles of justice and compassion that guide our efforts. This burly mountain of a man goes by Grizzly, but that only represents him when he is angry. Otherwise, Nicholas is someone you could always talk to for wise counsel. During the early days of the calamity in 2050, Nicholas was a lone traveler searching and hunting for sustenance. His journey brought him face to face with an outlaw gang whose reputation for lawlessness was overshadowed by the chilling reality of missing children. Determined to uncover the truth, Nicholas sought assistance from a local command center. So this is when your command center started to form. These are city centers that were issued special radios by the governments so that they can stay in contact with other neighboring cities and divert resources as needed to try to outlast this event. Keep in mind, nobody can create anything. All the technology is gone. You just don't have engineers around that, can recreate anything. All right. And then you have robots out there destroying the rest. So if you can get a hold of they're not worried about Blu-ray players. They're worried about computers that weren't connected. They're out there smashing them to bits. All right. Trying to destroy these things so that people have nothing. So the command center told them, no, they're bad people. So their kids are missing. Let it go. They'll figure it out. Refusing back down, Nicholas rallied the citizens, compelling them to confront the growing threat, right? So they said, hey, we need to get out there and find out what's up. On December 20th, 2050, so now we're talking many months into the thing, he achieved the unthinkable, brokering a treaty between the outlaw gang and the Newport Command Center, which is Newport's a city in eastern North Carolina. All right. This historic agreement, enshrined in what we now call the Children's Sanctuary Accords, became a cornerstone of moral governance during the calamity. It established critical tenets. Any child found was to be taken to a nearest school or religious center, which were declared neutral zones, all right, off limits for conflict or hostility. This is basically the Continental. If you go to a church or a school to drop off kids, you are good. In battles or disputes, all parties were required to prioritize the safety of children above all else. So if children showed up, it was like, all right, pause, let's get them out of here, resume. Community vigilance. Harm or neglect towards children was deemed a grave crime. All right, so this is another thing. People realize that children are the way of the future. And if we're going to succeed, these children need to grow up and become, help the world grow. Safe passage. Any party escorting children to a sanctuary was to be granted safe passage, regardless of their affiliations. So whether they're outlaw gangs. So here's the thing. Outlaw gang shows up, they find a kid. Guess what? They are bound to bring that kid to a sanctuary, regardless of what's going on. And the same thing with any person. They like, it's your immediate task. You've been reassigned. Oh, you're in the middle of a kid. No, sorry. Fine. Your job now is to bring these children to a sanctuary. All right. At these sanctuaries, they were still taught the best they could out of books that they found. People took care of them, and then other survivors would drop off food and goods to keep them fed. All right. It was everybody's responsibility, no matter if you're good or evil intent. So with the cooperation of local communities, over 50 children were freed from slavery. All right, so they actually got captured and turned slavery and returned, dropped off at a nearby elementary school. The Children's Sanctuary Accords were not just local or temporary pacts. They rapidly gained worldwide adaptation, uniting different communities under a shared commitment to protect the most vulnerable. Outside of that, it was all out, right? Nicholas Stein's actions have set a standard for integrity and courage that we must all strive for, right? So this guy saw a problem and he pushed hard to get it fixed. And that's what makes him a kind of a hero in our book. But we didn't, we don't see all the action things that went on, how many, bad things went down. They had to go in and free these kids. So it was, it was an operation. That being said, so in GunCraze, the story of what's happening with kids is they're at the sanctuary. You don't have to worry about them. Now, if a gunmaster wants to add that effect to a campaign or steer the party from something, he could use children. Hey, you've come upon a band of children. Oh, crap. Well, I guess we're going to take them somewhere. We got to take them to a sanctuary. So now you're going on to sanctuary and you have free passage on the way there. You drop them off, the people will look at you with pouty eyes, hoping you donate some of your food and supplies. Or you get there and you find out that the food and supplies have been taken by another outlaw gang, which would be a crime against children. Now, it's just like the Continental in John Wick. If you harm children in any way, shape, or form, everybody finds out. The word gets passed, everybody finds out, and everybody comes for you. And that's just the way it is, all right? Because even in this dark future, the bright, shining light of compassion, of understanding that the world will only continue if children exist, is bright. So that's one story, kind of a segue away from it. Now let's wrap back up into the back up into the storyline. A lot happens during the calamity. All right. First of all, there's always food to deal with. All right. Then you have the actual calamity. When it really begins is when you find out that they're not getting the system up for a very long time. Suddenly people panic and the great riots begin. People go out in hordes and pillage everything they can and burn things, and it's just like apocalyptic, the event. Meanwhile, again, robots in the distance are just breaking technology. They're just destroying it. People, if people start to get wise to it in the campaign, they come upon an area where like there's a building, a corporate building or whatnot, and the door is broken, and they're like, let's check it out. So they go inside, they hear some banging, they go in and they see this droid just destroying some technology, or destroying it, ripping it apart, whatever it does, and the party confronts it. Hey, robot, stop! And nothing happens, and then they have to, they have to take it down. So if they do so, the what has to happen is they start to understand like something's wrong with the robot. So like, this is the first time, it's one off, whatever. It won't answer questions. They can't do like in other games where, I'm going to twist your ear, or I'm going to hurt your private parts, or whatever it is to try to get the robot to speak. The robot just doesn't care. All right. So that being said, time goes on, and the players may or may not get wise to the fact that these machines, these robots are turned against society. And now they start to understand like why are all these happening, whatnot. And maybe through some sort of hacking, which is a skill in the game, they hack the system and find out that Inti was the one who set this up. The Inti ran by the ICCC. All right, that's the International Credit Card Corporation. That's the one who ran Inti. Like they supplied the money to keep her going. So where does that leave you? Okay, well, we need to start gathering as much technology as we can, because it will keep us from dying out as a race, as a human race. So at this point, there's stuff set up inside the game to do. It's very it is a little complex item crafting. I've built a whole very deep item crafting section where you can basically craft scrap pieces of things that existed if you had the knowledge of them. Again, you don't have a real device, you don't have the books or whatnot, so you're behind the power curve. And when you craft these items, you may get lucky and craft an actual high quality item. If you roll really well, you'll craft a high quality item. And if you do that, or if you get high quality blueprint, you can use it to craft a high quality item. And when you do, now you have this item that's worth a ton because you're actually started manufacturing again. You can create things. So kind of a world building aspect of that, where you can say, hey, you know what, I can make this and bring it to everybody. So strife abundant. Strife is just everything's going south. There's bad stuff going on. And right at the end of it, right bringing us into chapter 5, is a pandemic. So all the dead bodies that have been around in the cold, all right, have caused basically the Black Plague to happen again. And that becomes a problem, right? Now, I'll be on the level with you. There's a lot of cannibalism going on, too, in this period. So if you find out, that there are cannibals around, that is a thing. All right. So with that, perfect. Thanks. I got you. Getting the hookup. All right. So where we're at now is banding together. All right. That's where the bands actually come in. Chapter 6. All right. Chapter 7 is Enter the Hellions. All right. These are a group of people who don't want society to come back because they like living on the edge. They're like the future of barbarians, if you will. All right. Then you have your Chapter 8, Season of Disasters. Depending on where you live, a natural disaster occurs. Then the Gunmaster has to put you through that scenario, whether it's earthquakes on the West Coast, a massive hurricane on the East Coast, wherever that is, the goal is to have action going at the same time as a natural disaster. And there'll be ideas for that. And after that season of disasters, you have the deep freeze. All right, this is where an Arctic push from the north reaches as far down as central Mexico. And if you're in the north of like the United States, Canada, it becomes really hard to survive. It becomes really cold, and there's a lot of snow. And then after that happens, the world is shocked to hear over radio that corporations have been surviving in the darkness, and now they've relaunched a series of special satellites that do not connect to Inti, all right, or that can't be hurt by her. And with that, they reconnect what amounts to is communication, all right. And with that, they come out on all radios and they say, hey, we're going to get together. We're going to meet up, and we want to offer you jobs. So this giant push for corporate recruiting happens. And what they do is they want you to pick which company to work for, and each company has its own benefits. Now we're leaving the days of reckoning, and we're going into a book 2, Rise of the Corporations. In Rise of the Corporations, the first thing you have to do is find out where you fit. You and your band, where do you guys fit? Do you want to work for a food creation corporation? Do you want to work for a supply corporation where you're like constantly traveling on the roads back and forth and have access to lots of different supplies? Do you want to work for an equipment, corporation where you have better equipment than every other player, every other group? Where do you want to work at? Where's the place? So you all enlist, and then you don't know if it's actually a great place or not until you get there. You just took a chance. Your leader could be amazing. Or you can get the guy who took over New York area. His name's Deep, and he renamed Deep City at that point. So as time goes, one of the things about Deep is, you can't get married in his city unless he gets to meet the bride. All right, so that's one of the things, right? And it's a huge city, people. Now, by this point, 9 billion people, 10 billion people have died. All right, there is very few people relatively on the planet. There's a lot of destroyed buildings. All right, so it's not like you have suburban areas all still standing. No, nature comes back and reclaims these things, and bears living in houses. I mean, think about that. Like the perfect cave is a house covered in grass. All right. Wild dogs. All right. Speaking of which, dogs are eaten left and right. You think they would eat? Yeah. But some dogs were able to be kept safe. And that might be your party member's dog. All right. Additionally, cats. Cats actually, they found out cats are really useful to keep around, because they hunt mice, and they'll drop off mice and food when they have extra. They'll drop it off for you. You might have something to eat that night. All right. Birds, things like that, they'll capture them. So cats actually become really valuable. And people are like, wait, I can kill the cat and eat it once, or it can go out and find hard to find food for me and bring it back to me, and I could eat for days, months, years. So that's really what that comes down to. That's how animal goes. Now, deer, things overhunted, fish overfished at first, right? So as people die off, and like so many people die, those populations of animals actually come back. All right, they actually get sizable big. But let's talk about what's happening in the rise of corporations. So now you have these corporations with no regulation. Now, right now, you're feeling me, right? You're like, oh, man, I see where this is going. Yes. All right, so you have corporations with zero regulation. All right, and we'll go back to GunCraze.net. Timeline, I'm still working on the timeline. So rise of corporation is the espionage era. All right, it is corporate feudalism. You are essentially, this is where you see your first knights, which are your first individual power armored guys that, I mean, you see that before then, but rarely. Power armored guys going out and joining night squads and going out and dealing with problems, right? Corporate knights. Again, lots of feudal reckoning, but there's something else that happens during this time. So the satellites created the hypernet. The hypernet makes the internet look like dial-up, all right? The internet of 2050, of 2049 looks like dial-up compared to how fast this is. And one of the corporations creates a full dive world where it knocks you out and you go into the world and you basically spend your credits that you earn in this new corporation. You spend them at their corporation. And what it does is it keeps you compliant. It takes care of all your needs. You know, you can have your girlfriend again. She's VR, but you can have her. And it feels real. All that feels real and everything's great. But one day people go to log in and they see a different login thing. Right underneath this one, they see a different one. And it's called GunCraze Online. They're like, what the heck? So they go to click into it. It says deposit 1,000 credits. Whoa, I got to put 1,000 credits, which is roughly like $1,000 in a world where everybody's broke to even get in this thing? Yes. So if you get in, I'm not going to tell you the rest of that story, but I'll tell you the very first person you get to meet is Inti. Okay, no, I'll tell you the story because it's fun. I like it. I can't keep my mouth shut. All the technology that she stole, she buried in the deepest dungeons of this world. So your character, through their headset that they knock out in, they can go in here and meet other players, get together in parties, and try to salvage A, gear for their characters in there, and B, lost technology. I haven't fully come up with the repercussions of dying in this world. It may cause some power level loss, like literally wrecks your brain a little bit and you lose some knowledge. But yeah, there's that's probably where I'm gonna head with it. But Inti runs that place, and she's the empress of that world. Like she lives in the highest castle, and she's impossible to beat. All right, there's nobody. But for that part, she leaves the other kingdoms alone, and so it gives a players an outlet. So this will be the first time I think that I've ever heard of that your players your character can play in another role-playing game as another character, which I always thought was an exciting kind of joke, but I like it. I think it'll be fun. I think it will, again, if there's some kind of error or penalty to dying in that world, losing all your gear, it's shattering, or losing all your money that's invested. All right. How did they bring credits back, by the way? So before the calamity, everything was on a card that ran into a system. After the calamity, all your money's kept on the card. So what does that mean? That means whether you have $1 or $1 billion, it's on one, it's on your card. You can spread it on different cards. That just means you have to carry around more stuff and have a chance of losing it. Generally, people carry around one card. All right. Now the card has a biosignature to it, so you can at least put your thumb down, and they need your thumbprint to be able to get your money. But you can get a thumb any which way from Sunday. All right. You guys are smart. You figure it out. All right. So you gather all this. You also use a conversion machine to move money from one card to another. So there is that going on. So now that Rise of Corporations, it's back. And over time, this plays out. These corporations start, experimenting. They create mutants. They create all kinds of different genetic alterations for people where you become stronger. Like, you don't have to be a cyborg, which is amazing if you are, but you can actually be enhanced other ways. And as that goes, there may be, you know, a one-off where a gunmaster creates a character that just runs too fast, or, you know, like kind of like, oh, you know, superhero-ish, at least the feeling. So there's always that. GunCraze is going to cover everything. All right, it's going to have it all. You're going to have sci-fi. You're going to have fantasy. You're going to have everything. You have space travel. All right, because, all right, 2080 Corporation Wars. This is like, we have gotten, this feeling is the war era, but in cities it's cyberpunk. It's like straight cyberpunk. You have lots of gangers, lots of things like that, just running, whatnot. All right. Time goes on. The war for Mars. All right. Mars, we colonized it. At least we thought, you know, we thought, hey, we got cut off from them. They're all going to die. No, they figured it out somehow. All right. And we fly over there. We go to check it out. And we end up getting blown out of the sky and find out about it. And like, okay, we're going to go back and check this out again. So the original wave got blown out of the sky. So you might be sent on a strike team to find out what the heck happened to Mars. All right. Time passes. The years may adjust. Now we find out that there are aliens. All right. There are extra, you know, things not from Earth, obviously. And Mars has allied with them. The humans on Mars have allied with these aliens. And so from there, we basically go on a war for the solar system. And this is where you have your space battles, boarding parties, things like that. So there, again, there's going to be stuff for everybody. And you're also going to be able to have, at any point, basically from Rise of the Corporations on, you're going to be able to have your battle suits, which are basically like tailored to make you a giant robot killing machine and use all your talents and abilities as that robot machine. So the machine has to kind of resemble you and has to be kind of tailored for you. Otherwise you get penalties. But essentially, you know, akimbo aim, you can use akimbo aim. Your robot uses all your abilities. Your battle suit, you go full dive VR in it, and you feel the machine. You feel pain when you get hit. All right. So that is something exciting to look forward to. I have been, you know, really glad to talk about GunCraze tonight and the storyline. We didn't get a lot done, but we did talk about the storyline. I'm excited about it. I think it has a lot of potential to grow. And this is where that point where I'm going to put it out there to you. If you're watching this video now, if you've made it this far, reach out, get involved. Your character can be one of the characters in this world forever. All right. When this book gets published, it'll be, you know, even as a small example character, it'll be in there and maybe used in one of the books that will inevitably come. All right. As long as the character's name is not copyrighted, you know, if your character's, if you're like, hey, my name is Cloud Strife, I'm like, sorry, can't really do that. All right. It's copyrighted. All right. So we don't want to use those. That being said, you know, I love the storyline. It's really kind of worked itself together, become very developed. I think it has a lot of things that go for it. So, you like zombies? Guess what? During the Rise of the Corporations, when they're doing all this, you know, unregulated inventing and experimentation, there's your zombie. You can have your zombies. If you want zombies, it's great. All right. GunCraze Miniature Battles actually has some zombie rules in there to cover zombies. All right. So that's really where we're sitting. And I'm, like I said, I'm really happy to talk about the story with you. I do hope that you have time to watch this whole video to learn the entirety of where we're going with the storyline. Do you have to play the storyline at all? No, you don't. You can make your own world. You can use your own rules. It's perfectly fine. There will be magic in SwordCraze Online. It will be complex, but awesome. All right. It will. My intent is to have basically spells that you can use so often. Okay. And I haven't decided, you know, the best system. A lot of people like memorizing their spells or picking their spells. I think mine's are going to be based on a fantastical version of the oh my gosh, when words to fall. So you have the horoscope, which is based upon the zodiac. So there you go. All right. So but it'll be like a fantastic. So instead of like Leo, it'll be like a minotaur. All right. What does that do? It does certain things. Elements will be in there. The 4 major elements, and then darkness and light will be in there, and then maybe some other concepts will be in there. I haven't really panned it out, but the spell list will be extreme, and when you gain a power level, you can put it in magic as another additional specialization score. So you have, melee combat would be top, ranged combat, body, quickness. We've heard those before. Non-combat, magic, or magic then non-combat. All right, and that magic will be all over the place. You'll be able to spend points in anywhere. And you'll also choose a sun sign, a moon sign, all right? And those sun and moon signs is where basically astrology, where the sun and moon were the moment you were born. And what that allows you to do is it's going to give you some benefits on certain spells, and some with the moon sign, it's going to give you a spell that you weren't able to achieve before. But it's basically going to give you a higher level spell from a different branch. That's the thought process. We'll get there. We're putting the cart before the horse, talking too much about that. But GunCraze is going to be an action-packed game. And somebody asked me today what the end effect was. So in 51 minutes, we'll go ahead and tell you this is the end effect. This is where I want to be. At some point, I want to have a website with the whole entire world on it. Maybe go through Niantic or somebody that manages those Pokemon Go centers, or if you ever played Ingress. And each one of those places will be, and that may not be it. It may just be all your friendly local gaming stores. So when these gaming stores sign up their store to this, they enter the map. And what does that mean? It puts them on the map, and it allows a command center to be built in that place. So you get one you might have 1 or 2 or 3 in a city. It's a command center where people meet and they play games of GunCraze. But let's say you're traveling, hey, I'm going to Dallas. Well, you can look up there and see where their command center is, reach out and send a message. Like, hey, I want to join you guys for a session. I'm traveling from this. And it will be just like in an action movie where a guy from another place comes in and he joins the battle and then moves out afterwards. All right, because the scenario is always launch from the command center and come back. That's your tavern. You go out, you do things, you come back to a new tavern, you go to a new tavern, you find out things, you launch, all right? So I think we spent enough time talking about GunCraze. My throat is almost hoarse. But I appreciate you all. And I hope you do stop by the Patreon, all right? It's $3 a month, and support this project, all right? It's an amazing project. There's a lot going for it. And I hope you get in on it, start reading the rule book, asking questions. You guys are very smart people. Gamers are very smart people, okay? I'm not saying I'm going to roll over on every suggestion, but I will definitely take them into account. And I appreciate your time and your patience tonight. Again, we didn't get any rules done, but we talked about a lot of the core of the GunCraze universe. And I'm excited to have you come in on this community and lend me your assistance, in play testing and whatnot. That being said, I'm just going to play a couple videos and let it go from there. I hope you all have a pleasant night, and I will see you on Friday. Take care. Hello, this is Tim Patterson, and we're here today to talk about GunCraze. So what is GunCraze? GunCraze is an action tabletop role-playing system that brings players into intense action combat, pushing the boundaries of realism. And what do I mean by pushing the boundaries of realism? Well, anybody that enjoys a good 80s, 90s action movie understands when realism gets pushed a little bit. that character throws a knife through the enemy and pins him through a wall. Could it happen? Maybe. And that's the type of realism we're talking about pushing. GunCraze is a system that uses D10s. Successes in GunCraze are determined by the roll of a 10-sided dice, and they're compared normally to a target number or to an opposed roll, usually from an opponent. GunCraze uses a 2-second round, where characters can either perform a movement and an action, or perform a combination action. GunCraze uses a classless system that offers a large amount of variation of character development. There are literally millions of character customization combinations. Characters are customized by specializations, attributes, perks, talents, skills, and then their weapons and equipment. And we're going to get into all these in different videos. In future videos, we're going to discuss that character creation. We're going to talk about talents. We're going to talk about skills. We're going to talk about the different types of weapons. We're going to talk about craze points. GunCraze is currently in an alpha testing, meaning it's still in development. You can support GunCraze directly by subscribing to our Patreon. For $3 a month, you'll get access to every document that is produced in PDF format. As soon as it's released, you get it. But thank you for your time, and help us fund GunCraze.